This episode of the Better Every Shift podcast is sponsored by MagnaGrip. Eliminate diesel exhaust fumes from inside the fire station with a MagnaGrip exhaust removal system. Learn more at magnagrip.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Better Every Shift podcast. This is your host, Aaron Zamzow. I am a fire officer up in Wisconsin. I'm also a contributing writer to Fire Rescue One. I am not alone. I am guided and assisted on this mission today by the editor-in-chief, the commander, Janelle Fosquet. Janelle, how are we doing today?
Doing great. We are amongst royalty today. I know. I took it from you.
Yes, right. We are amongst royalty today. We have the fire chief of the year from the IFC, who happens to be part of the Royal family. It's Fire Chief Randy Royal. And we're going to talk a lot today about all the different things that he has done. Chief, thank you for being here. First and foremost, congratulations on all your different accomplishments and all the things that you've done and for this award. How does it feel?
It's very humbling and definitely an honor. I can say I was shocked when I got the news for sure. So
you're awarded this, and a lot of it's not just, I think on just 1 year's of work. I mean, reading through your bio and all the things that you've done with Colorado Springs Fire Department is really impressive. You've been a chief officer for over 16 years. And, this award is well-deserved. How did you understand, how did you get nominated? Talk to us a little bit about the process and even the phone call when you got the final nod.
Yeah, so I had nothing to do with the process. I have a group of very evil and sneaky people that work around me that did this. So and actually still to this day, I don't know exactly all or what they sent. But they got together and sent the nomination in. I was unaware until I was on vacation, and I got a phone call. I was up in the mountains and standing in a food line waiting for my food when my phone rang. And I was actually on the phone talking to somebody else, and so I let it go to voicemail, listened to the voicemail, and it was Rob Brown, who's the liaison with the I Chiefs. And he said, "Hey, Randy, I got some great news for you, and give me a call back." And I'm going like, "Why is Rob calling me?" It must be like grant funding or maybe some money coming our way or something. So that's what I was thinking. And then he laid it on me, and I don't get shocked very much, in life. And that one shocked me. You could have knocked me over with a feather. So.
Who was your first phone call after?
Well, I actually won a phone call. So I was actually at a brewery up in the mountain town of Fairplay. And my wife was over there, but they didn't serve food. So I walked across the street to get a sandwich and walked back over there after I heard the news. And it was my wife, my daughter, my son-in-law, and one of my grandsons. And I sat down at the table and basically said, you're not going to believe what just happened. And so.
That's great.
That's one hell of a sandwich.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And we had strict orders not to share it with anybody else because they wanted to present it, obviously, and not let the news out. So we had to be quiet for a month, and I didn't until after the announcement is when I really started finding out who had put my name in and who was part of the nomination. So that was fun as well.
And so you're on stage in Dallas, you get the award. What was that experience like going down there? Then did it finally kind of hit? I'm sure at first, like you said, I didn't even believe it. When did it finally kind of slap you and say, hey, this is real. This is what you deserve. This is what you won. Was that down at FRI? Yeah,
I don't know if I ever got to the it's what I deserve part, but it definitely. I tell you what, as I looked more into the award and I saw previous winners and stuff like that, again, that's very humbling. And the night before they present the award, they actually have a dinner. And so my wife and I went to the dinner, and there's a lot of previous winners that were there, and the iChiefs executive board, and then the nomination folks, and some other, sponsors and founders and stuff. And so it was a very nice dinner. And that's where they asked both myself and the volunteer chief of the year to share some words, and so I shared just, about our department and what we've been doing. And that whole process is again, just very humbling. When you look at people that have gone before me and to be even put on the same piece of paper with them means a lot. So it's pretty neat.
And every chief that we've ever talked to here, they said, obviously you can't do this alone. I mean, you mentioned the support already, your family. But when you accept this and look at this, I mean, do you picture, obviously, like, you take this back and give it to your assistant chiefs and said, hey, this is all of us? I mean, how does that message come back?
Yeah. So what I've really liked about it, because almost every day people have been, I mean, even since then, it's been a while since FRI, people in our community have seen me at meetings. I was at one last night where the mayor loves throwing that out. Every meeting he gets, he's going like, and by the way, we have the International Fire Chief of the Year. And so I have the opportunity to talk to people. And the great thing about it is every time I get to talk to people, I get to tell them that we have really, really good people working in our department that make me look good. Because it's not, it's just not about me. It's about our whole department. All the things that we can talk about as far as successes and all, we're a team effort, and even, grassroots, people coming up with an idea and let's look at that and see if we can pull it off or not, and working together. And so that's the fun part about it for me, because I get to brag about our department. So, yeah.
Speaking of your department, you've been with them for a long time. Yeah. Does that make it that much more sweet? I mean, it's, I think you've been there
37 years.
Yeah. Since 1987. Mm-hmm. So we were joking behind the scenes that, you've implemented a lot of new programming, obviously on the fire and on the medical side. We were talking about being a paramedic, mm-hmm. back in 1987, where you got like a stick of chewing gum, some duct tape, and maybe maybe a little bag. And now you're doing like things like a blood program with your department. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about like the pride that you have with Colorado Springs and why it's that much more important that you want it being that chief.
So one of the things I'll tell you about Colorado Springs, the city, and it impacts the fire department, is we have a very limited budget. We have some very tight tax laws here. Like the guy that brought him to our city came from California with Proposition 13 and all that. Well, he brought that to our community and it's very restrictive. So we don't have lots of money to spend and play with and be innovative with. So that comes back to our people taking ownership and being dedicated to try to serve our citizens at the highest level possible. And again, that's where I get to brag about the department, is because we're innovative and we're doing good cutting edge things, but it's because people are stepping up. It's not because we're rolling in the money to be able to just easily do these things. They come with a lot of hard work to get them done. So,
yeah. So you've seen all this growth and transition. What's one of the things that you're most proud of, of kind of spearheading since you've been chief?
I would say probably our division of community and public health. Just the impact. And we get to share this a lot, but the impact of 911, if you go back in time, late 60s, early 70s, when 911 was established, it was for critical emergencies, right? And when I share this story, I talk about it, the little man or little lady I transported that had the bone sticking out of their leg, that was apologizing. They're going like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I know this is only for critical emergencies." Yes. And I'm really, and they'll go, no, you called for the right reason. You fit into that box, right? Well, it's morphed, and people call for sprained ankles and flu and cold things and any lots of minor stuff, and that across the whole United States, that's impacted our call volume significantly. For us, it's 80% of our call volume is medical. I do believe we need to be responding, but what we have been working on over the last more than a dozen years is getting the right response to the right patient at the right time, right, with the right resource. And that is, we're looking at impacting about 30 to 40% of our call volume with those units. And what happens is then that leaves our heavy apparatus and our paramedics in a place to respond to the critical calls, whether it's a fire or shooting or cardiac arrest or hazmat rescue, whatever. Now they're more available and able to go on those calls. And our patients are getting, the treatment they need on the lower level as well.
You're talking more about a tiered EMS response that
right.
you've created over there. Yeah, let's dig into that a little bit. So where did that come about? And, you kind of give us a little background into it, but how did you start to take that and make it, take action on creating that?
So we started with what we used to call our 911 abusers, super utilizers, right? Now we call them our most loyal customers.
Yeah, customers, yes.
Most loyal customers.
Most loyal, frequent loyal points. Is that maybe what we're going to get here?
Frequent flyers, yeah. Most loyal customers. But so we had identified that there was a number throughout our community that were calling sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. And I mentioned the 7 people in one year calling 1,000 times. And
I just want to emphasize that again. Yeah. You had 7 people. Mm-hmm. And when you brought that up to the general public, when you're just trying to educate your the community, these 7 people called 1,000 times in 1 year. And I think we all can relate to that, as we listen. So you brought that to attention and as I interrupted you though, but I just thought that's such a dramatic point that we all need to understand. Right.
Yeah. And you think about those 7, if they came from 7 districts, well, we got another 18 districts, right? If every one of them had a super utilizer in their district, that's tens of thousands of calls, that were going on multiple times. So we looked at that and said, okay, we got to dig into why they're calling and how we can get them the resources so they don't call 911, because the calls aren't falling into the bucket of critical need you right now calls. They are more the lower acuity calls. And so we set up our CARES program, is what it was called back then. We call it Super Utilizer now. And through our computer systems, you're identified. If you pop up 3 times in a month or 6 times in a year, our computer data pops you out and we go visit you with this unit. They're in an SUV and have a paramedic and EMT on it, and they go evaluate you and then get you into the right resource that's going to help you out. So it evolved from there. And we ended up adding mental health units. We have multiple of those out on the street. Went from 100% transport, where we would transport them to the hospital, and most times the hospital would kick them out within an hour because they weren't able to treat them.
And we might have to pick them up again.
Yeah. And guess what we did? We put them back in the ambulance and sent them back to the hospital again. Yep. Very inefficient, not good. So now 60% of the time, those patients that we run on, our crews de-escalate them on scene and leave them with family or friends. 25% in an SUV, not an ambulance. They take them to either inpatient or outpatient treatment facilities. And then there's 15% that we still have to transport because they have a medical issue. Mm-hmm. But we've gone from 100% down to 15%. And obviously our hospital systems love it, because it's not flooding their ERs with mental health patients.
And your members love that too, because right. Like we're paramedic. You've been a paramedic for 28 years. Those calls frustrate you. Like you want to be able to help and provide service, but the only option you have is take them to the hospital. Right. I mean, at that point, and now you're giving, your membership other options. You're also helping the hospitals out. What's another aspect of that you're trying to add or have added to that EMS model?
So a couple other ones that are within our division of community and public health are aging in place. So I mentioned some of the super utilizers were elderly that just weren't able to thrive. Mm-hmm. So now either through our data or through company officers that say, hey, we ran on this 90-year-old female that's living by herself. She's not doing well. This unit goes out to them, meets with them, and the goal is to get them the resources so they can thrive at home. But if that's not possible because of their condition, then we try to help them get into a long-term care facility. So the goal is to keep them at home, But if that's not possible, then that way, which again takes them out of the system of calling 911. And then we have our homeless outreach program, which are behavioral health specialists, and they actually go out into the homeless population proactively. And it's all about building relationships. And 98% of that population either has a drug or mental health problem or both, and are going to stay out there homeless until they get the right care, right? Mm-hmm. The relationship building is really important because most of them aren't going to go like that. You know, you're not going to walk up to somebody, hey, we want to get you into care. You know, they're like, no, I really like what I'm doing. So they build relationships, and they've been able to successfully move people off the street into long-term housing. They've been able to get them into both substance abuse and mental health treatment. And we're seeing a decline in our homeless population. As soon as we started this program in our downtown area, we saw like a 42% drop in the police department having to write citations to homeless people. Mm-hmm. That was an automatic, just initial change that we saw. And then we have the transition assistance program, which we saw was a missing link, that whether you're homeless or mental health, if you got arrested, you went into the jail system, but then your care stopped, whether it was substance abuse or mental health. So these members work in the jail system and the judicial system to make sure that the continuum of care keeps going. So when they do get released from jail, they don't just fall right back into what they were doing before. So,
wow. Yeah. What are the agencies did you reach out to help get, because there's PD involved in some of this. Is there other agencies I'm not thinking of?
Law enforcement, particularly our behavioral health agencies, multiple ones that we have are working together with us. Our hospital systems, they actually were initial funders of the super utilizer program and the CRT, the mental health program, because they obviously saw the impact of lessening those numbers coming through their front door, right? And this whole, presently we have about 35 employees in our division of community and public health. And there was a time where all of them were grant funded. And I was okay with that to start, because as each program came along, they weren't proven right. We had to prove that they were good. But now, and we've worked, probably 20 of those 35 are now funded out of the general fund. We're still working on getting general fund dollars to fund the rest of them, because they're proven and they need to stay around. And we have that support. We're just working through the dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a process there. I mean, some of the processes take 42 years, right, Chief? Right. I mean, you're still working on them over there.
Still working on them, yeah.
But I mean, a lot of those accomplishments, you've kind of looked through different lenses. And I want to just mention this because you were selected for Chief of the Year for your exemplary representations of leadership, innovation, professional development, integrity, and public service within the fire service. And I think, you could see all of that in your EMS model. You've also worked really hard to get a couple more stations for your department. I think through granting, is that correct? Or how did you go through and get the 2 new stations to be built?
So 2 of them were through just fighting is not the term I want to use, but proactively engaging city administration in educating.
Yes.
And getting, let them know that we're falling behind, because our city is growing a lot. So 2 of them were getting the funds from the general fund. But then the third was, there was a very small district, 1 station district on the southeast of the airport that's actually surrounded by city. And we went to them, and it was a win-win. They were running with 2 people on their engines in basic life support. And our units were supporting them anytime they had anything critical, whether it was medical or fire or anything. We were sending units in there to support. So what we've done is we've taken over their station. They're paying us what they were paying for their fire service there. Doesn't pay for our full costs, but it was in an area of town that we were going to have to add a station anyway. So it was a win-win. Mm-hmm. We completely remodeled and added onto this station. We're running out of that station. We're getting some money from them, and then they're getting the benefit of, now we have 4 people and a paramedic right there in their neighborhood that's responding. So I would say between this and the Division of Community Health, the key word's collaboration. right? Looking for collaborative efforts to get people that are desiring the kind of the same goal and focus and opportunity to come together and say, hey, how can we make this happen?
Yeah. You'd said a win-win. You have to come at it with that kind of attitude too, and presentation, correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And is that the case also for some of the mental health programs and initiatives that you've launched at the department in terms of collaborating with other agencies?
Absolutely. If we did not have the collaboration of both other governmental and other nonprofit and private agencies, these units would not have been successful. It's definitely a community collaboration that makes them successful. Now, I will say though, we were the catalyst to get that going because everybody was siloed up, right? And so it takes having people that are willing to say, let's bring everybody to the table and just start working through this and see how it shakes out. So,
well, tell us about those initiatives. What are the mental health initiatives look like at your department right now?
We have now a very solid peer support program. I think we have 60 plus members of that program who are trained to assist our other members with any kind of issues that they have. We have a staff psychologist now full-time that's on our staff. And I tell you what, the key thing on that is really a culture change to where people aren't seeing a mental health issue, a stress issue, even a drinking or substance abuse issue as something that they have to deal with by themselves, right? We're seeing more people reach out and say, hey, I know I've got an issue and I want to get some help. And I think that's the culture that has been built out of the peer support program and them spending time with our staff and going like, hey, we're here for you. We and the department are not here to come after you and make you lose your job. We're here to help you be a successful person and a healthy living, right? And that has really changed the culture.
How do you communicate that to them? Like, how do you get that buy-in and establish that trust around mental health programs?
Yeah, I think I would say it's really one, setting the example, but two, doing what you say, right? You know, if somebody came to us today and said, hey, I know I have a drinking problem, and we went, sorry, you can't work here, you're out the door, then nobody else is going to want to come step up, right? We have a number of people on our job, both with substance abuse and alcohol abuse, that we have walked them through and helped them get to a healthy lifestyle. And they have turned around. I would say there's like 5 or 6 of them that turned around. We have a studio here in our department where we broadcast training, and we have like every 2 weeks I go on there with my deputy chiefs and we share the issues that are going on, stuff like that. But
like this podcast, you'll be
broadcasting
this podcast, of course, in the studio.
Like yep. But we had 5 or 6 individuals, both from alcohol and substance abuse, that are doing great now, that put themselves in front of the whole department and spent 45 minutes to an hour sharing what they went through and how they got there.
Wow, good for them.
Yeah. And that's huge.
Yeah, that's a culture shift too, because when you said, someone comes up and says, I got a drinking problem, back in the day would have been, well, let's go have a beer and talk about it a little bit, right? Like, wait a minute, how is that helping anybody? But it is a culture shift. So, as you kind of, and I'm not going to say it's towards the end of your career, you've been in 42 years. Let's hopefully we can get another 15 or 16 out of you. I don't know if your wife would agree.
Yeah.
But how did you work to change that culture a little bit? And let me even go a step further and say, when you step away from the fire service, to you, what's the ultimate culture? What does that look like from mental health, physical health, relationship wise, breaking down these silos? This is a big question. It could take you about 3 hours to answer it, but I'm really curious to see how you've seen it shift and what you think the ultimate goal should be.
I think it's really ensuring that your people know that they're valued, right? And part of that comes from being transparent, part of it comes from what I was saying is doing what you say, right? And what I try to preach in all of my direct reports try to preach is that our bottom line is to help our staff be successful, right? And so if they get sideways, we're going to give them opportunity to be successful. And they still have the opportunity to make bad choices, right? And I honestly can say that there's people that aren't working here today that continue to make bad choices. Part of success is also we have to maintain our trust of our community. We're putting people in other people's homes. They're handing their babies to us, those type of things. We have to maintain that trust. So there's a balance there. But I think even if my hope is, and I believe it's true for the most part, is even when we have had to terminate somebody, they know that we did everything we could on our end to help them be successful, which then that reflects on the department as a whole, but it also reflects on our other staff that are doing a great job. And they know they have that we have our arms around them. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You kind of talk about accountability.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for the essence of it is that, staffing might be an issue, but we want to staff the right people. And if you build a culture where we're going to hold people accountable, that transfers obviously to the ones that aren't doing their job, but it sends a message to those that are doing the job that they're valued. Right. And I think that's kind of one of the best summaries, I think, is what you're believing and saying there.
Right. Yep. The article that Janelle was talking about, the mission first, people always. Mm-hmm. That was I picked that up from a 4-star Army general that was speaking up at the Air Force Academy here at a leadership conference, and the media had come to him, and he was the guy that I forget his name right now, but he was the guy that was over the Iraqi wars. But the media came to him and said, "Hey, what's more important, the mission of the Army or its people?" And his answer was mission first, people always. And I tell people it kind of made me giggle because it didn't really answer the question, but I love the answer.
Yeah.
Right? Both are important.
Yeah.
And so I've really latched onto that and tried to espouse that with our, for every level, our department. And actually, when I was getting ready to take this job as the fire chief, I went out and I thought, I wonder if there's any articles about that, mission first, people always. And I actually found some. And I actually found one that did a study. And in this study, they first looked at officers, supervisors that were really good with their people. They took care of their people. They're friends with their people. They partied with their people. But on the mission side, they weren't, good at training. They weren't maybe good, fire ground managers, but they did okay. But they were really good on their people. On a 100% scale, you know what they rated? 14%. And I feel like I'm a people person, and that doesn't taste good, right?
Yeah.
Well, then they looked at people that were really good on the mission. I mean, these guys trained hard. They're good on the fire ground. They're good tactically. They had good medical skills. They're just good on all that. But they weren't so good with their people. They didn't spend time with them. They really didn't get to know their people. They didn't build relationships with them. But they were good on the tactical side. Well, they rated 17%. They're better than the people, but still on a 100% scale, that sucks, right?
Yeah, that's not even. Yeah, that's not even failing. That's beyond failing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. So then the third part is they looked at people that did both, that balanced both, that were masters of their craft, really knew what the mission was about, really went out to serve their people, serve the citizens, serve their fellow firefighters, and were good skill-wise, fireground-wise, medical scene-wise, all that. But at the same time, made sure that people were valued, made sure that they knew them, built relationships with them, cared for them, took care of them, and they rated 74%. So 5 times higher than the others by doing both.
Anybody? What was 100%? Any?
No,
we're still searching for that one, right? We're still searching for that.
Yeah, we're still searching for that.
How do they do it? What's their secret to making both work without them being, mutually exclusive?
I believe you can make them both work, you know, and I think it's important to make them both work, because if you really get your mission, you're not taking care of your people. The people are the biggest part of our mission, right? They're the ones that make it happen out on the street. So if they're not getting valued and fed and supported and all that, you're not going to serve your community like you need to be. And then the people that are just focusing on their people, if they're not good at their skills and the things that that our citizens trust us to do out on the streets and be good at, then it's going to suck as well, right? It's just going to be bad. And so you got to have both.
Has there been a point? He's got a book.
Yeah, it's a. I just got this last week from a group of mainly Colorado fire chiefs that heard me talk about this last year. They made this sign, and on this corner down awesome. Here, it's hard to see, but there's a P-38, which was my dad's plane, and that's in that story that we're talking about. He exemplified mission first people always in World War II over in the Pacific, and his crew members. He died at 102, but his crew members talked about him all their lives because of how he took care of them and how they fought the war. So, yeah.
For those that are listening, you should be watching us on YouTube, by the way. So get over to our YouTube channel. Chief Rael he has a sign that says "Mission First" and people always, and it's it's got some remembrances of his father and obviously the fire helmet on one side. Has there ever been a time, Chief, where you maybe didn't follow, or you were too much mission first and you were too much people that you had to kind of give yourself a check and balance? Give me a couple of examples there.
Well, I'd say the Castle West fire. The Castle West
2007,
fire.
2007, 85.
Yeah, that's one where we slipped on taking care of our people. It was came in right after midnight. It was 3 degrees. It was miserable conditions. I'm in my Chief's car. I'm pretty warm and toasty and got my radio on and my heat going, you know. Our guys were freezing, and they fought they did the 85 ladder rescues, which is historic. Saved lots of lives. If you would asked me that night, I would have told you we were going to have 30 to 40 dead, and ended up with 2. And there's 360 people living in that building. So they fought fire, they did rescues, and then they fought fire all night long. And we did not do our job. I didn't do my job as far as bringing in relief crews soon enough to, because they were beat to tar, right? And in freezing conditions and really miserable conditions. That's where we got to, I got to be better at it. We all have to be better at that. That's one place where I definitely, we did really good on the mission. We did a great job on that fire, but our people got beat up.
Yeah. So how was that brought to your attention?
Well, I just retrospectively, as my son was on that fire. He's a lieutenant with us now. He was a brand new firefighter at that time. He was on the end of one of our ladders where his bunker gear was freezing to the ladder. It was so cold out there. We didn't see each other during the fire. We had multiple ladder trucks up and lots of engines and stuff. Well, the next morning after the sun came back up, we ran into each other about 10 o'clock in the morning. And I remember just having that conversation and going like, I mean, it became obvious as time went on that, we needed to get those folks in. And, there was so much going on, especially in the initial couple hours of that fire. It wasn't on our radar, but it should have been on our radar.
Yeah.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Protect yourself with MagnaGrip, the easiest, most reliable exhaust removal system that features a true 100% seal to eliminate diesel exhaust fumes in a snap. Visit magnagrip.com to download MagnaGrip's free grant guide with expert tips to solidify a grant for essential safety equipment, such as MagnaGrip's exhaust removal systems. That's magnagrip.com to download the free guide.
Yeah, it's tough too. I know I've been on some of those 30 below zero calls, and at firefighters, right? We don't want to, hey, Chief, I'm good. I'm good. Mm-hmm. And that's where you have to be people centered, because that we probably would say that to our own detriment, right? Sure. Like, and it's, so I kind of like this as a radar or directive, mission people, right? Because you can go back and forth a little bit and check and balance put those checks and balances on yourself. Did you always believe that, or give me a little insight as to how your leadership style has changed over the years?
Yeah, I think, and again, it probably comes back to my dad for sure, and things that he taught me, both my dad and my mom. But I've always been one to try to take care of people and try to be good at what I do, and I guess now I just have the opportunity to spread that out even more, having been in either the deputy chief's position, well, even battalion chief, but deputy chief, and then the chief's position, to have that opportunity to really kind of share that focus and try to ingrain it in our culture. And when you're focusing on getting better and getting innovative, like some of the things we talked about with tiered response and how we do firefighting and the whole blood program, those type of things, that's really tied to the mission. But it's also comes back to the people, because we're allowing people to be part of the solution, right? We're not saying, nah, you're just a brand new firefighter. We don't want to hear from you. You come in our door and you get out of our training academy and onto the line, we want to start hearing from you, and we want you to be part of our success, right? And we did have a time in our history where our academies were beating the tar out of people, and it was kind of like, you got to break them down before they will become part of the team. And we actually broke people down that still don't forget that, right? And that's not taking care of your people.
No.
And where the fire service kind of, instilled that, harassment, that beat down, that, you got to tear them down before they're good mentality. If you look at the business world, if they get a new person in their business, they're going to do everything they can to help that person be successful, because of them, that makes more dollars and more products sold and this and that, right? Well, for us, we should be doing the same thing. They come through the door, we should try to be, make them part of the team and help them to be as successful as possible. Because for us, it means either our citizens' safety or our own safety, in a fire or some kind of complex incident. They need to be on point and they need to be as good. So beating them down, especially when you beat somebody down where they get so self-conscious and don't even want to be here or hate being here, they're going to be less likely to pull your butt out of a fire, when things go south, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, they're leaving the fire service now. They're not even staying in anymore, which, leads to a lot of other issues, as far as recruit and retention. But you're right. Like, we used to eat our own, and it was almost like culture first, people second in that case, where you're like, right. Well, if the culture's not right, what do we do it here? Right.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, and Chief, I was thinking about what you said about your leadership style. And I'm just wondering, it's one thing to lead by example, but it's a whole separate thing also to be very intentional in those actions, where you can really kind of bake your leadership style into the process.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of is spending time with people, right? And that's last spring I went to every single station, every single shift. That's a lot of time.
Yeah. How many stations you got, Chief?
We've got 25, and 24, because 25 is not open yet. It's in the process of being built, but
three shifts, 24 stations, right?
Yeah. And then we have our civilian staff as well. So, and I met with each of those groups as well. That's on the station side, that's 3 shifts. So that's, basically 70 some stops.
Yep. 72, yeah. I think 24 times 3, right? I did.
Yeah. And each one, I try to spend at least a couple hours there. That takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
I love it because it's so great to get around the kitchen table with the men and women and just interact with them and talk with them and hear from them and hear where they think we need to be and what's going on and get their ideas. And my deputies and the battalion chiefs do that as well. And my other supervisors as well. And I think that's important. It's just, you need to spend time. And we also intentionally, the deputies and myself and the fire marshal have officer meetings where we'll bring all the officers in on each of the shifts by battalion and just spend typically about 3 to 4 hours with them, just talking and bringing them up to speed. We try to be really transparent in communicating what we're working on and, you know, the struggles that we're having and where we're running into roadblocks, so that they can hear and be aware, you know, and it's part about being transparent. And obviously I can't be transparent 100% of the time, because some stuff is above me where I'm not allowed to share that, but anything I can, I'm way open. There's nothing to hide, whether it's good or bad. And I think that transparency also helps to having open communication and understanding that, you know, we're trying to do the best we can do. Some things are out of our control. And when people understand that, it's easier to live with it too.
Yeah.
I think those are great examples of the intentionality aspect of it, because it's the kind of thing where you can say, oh, I'd love to go visit every station at every shift, but without a plan, that's going to be so hard. Oh, I'll get to that. I'll do that. Nope. Maybe you get to 3 of them,
right.
You know, but having it on the calendar, having it as part of the mission, part of the plan, structuring it makes it happen. That's great.
Yeah. It shows a lot to the field. You know, I can vouch for that. I mean, everybody says, I don't like it when the chief comes. Actually, we all do, because, you know, it's nice to see, chiefs are human. Chiefs are looking at a lot of the same stuff, and chiefs are taking care of us. And you know, one of your things is obviously, you know, mission first, people always. You had written for a grant for your firefighters on the health and wellness side, the fitness side. Tell me a little bit about how did that come about, and what's the outcome of that so far, and what was the drive for that?
Yeah. So I mentioned how our budget's tight, so we're always looking for grants, and we work hard to get grants. We've been pretty successful on the different areas. But this particular one of the things we wanted to do is do, you know, cancer and health screenings of all of our sworn staff. Right. And we couldn't financially do it within our budget. So we did go after a AFG grant, and half of that, it ended up being over $1 million. Half of that went through some specialized training for our hazmat and heavy rescue folks. That again was above and beyond. We felt the need for it, but, you know, couldn't justify it under our budget. So we were able to get that. And then the other half went to, we're actually in the process right now of, we just started some of the screening of it, and then the full-blown testing is coming up, but we'll be running everybody through, and they'll have a good screening of their, you know, cancer potential, or if they have a cancer. And I truly believe we'll end up having 4 or 5 people pop out of that with cancers, but if we can do it and catch them early, that's awesome. And the value of that too is doing the screening, and then we do get results of it. My hope is then I can go back to the city and say, hey, okay, this grant costs us this much money, but if we do 1/3 of our people, you know, once every 3 years, right, it's only going to cost us like $160,000 a year.
Yeah.
And we have a $110 million budget, and that budget, that's pretty small, right? And the city's got $650 million budget. For them to say, yeah, because the savings of catching them early, rather than them being in, you know, stage 4 and needing everything in the world and costing hundreds of thousands of dollars to treat, it's a no-brainer, right? Yeah. So that's where I'm hoping to go with it.
And you do NFPA, you do the 1582 medicals also. This is in addition to those?
Yeah, we do our own screenings. We have our own risk management, occupational health. We don't do yearly physicals. They get free yearly physicals through our health insurance. Mm-hmm. Our hazmat heavy rescue folks get them through us on an annual basis, but they're available there. Yeah.
Okay. And then this is in addition. These are just cancer.
Right. This is specific cancer cardiac focus.
So you've done all these things, and you know, it took a little bit of time. And there's still, like, I click back and there is a list of other things. You got improved PPE for your department. You have a blood program now where you're giving whole blood. Tell me a little bit about that, because you're one of 2 departments, I believe, in the country that are doing this program. Is it a pilot program? Yeah,
I think there's a couple more than that. But the one that has been doing it and has been doing it well is San Antonio.
Okay.
And so we connected with them, and we knew this was a direction we wanted to go. Learned a lot from them, and just last May we were able to kick it into gear, and have already seen phenomenal success with it, as far as lives saved with people that would have bled out on the way to the hospital.
Just describe real quick for our listeners, like, what does that program entail?
It's basically, so right now we have medical lieutenants that are medical supervisors. They're in their own vehicles. They actually carry the blood, and it has to be kept cool. So there's special equipment that you have to keep it cool. And then when you know you're going to give it, you have to warm it up to the temperature that you can put it into somebody's body without putting them, into hypothermia, right? So they do that, and they'll based on either the call coming in and hearing the details to that's a potential blood, or a company officer saying, hey, we believe this is going to be one. They head that direction, show up on scene, give it on scene, or we'll actually meet the ambulance en route to the hospital and jump in the back and provide the blood there. And 32 out of the last 38 walked out of the hospital that we gave blood to, which is phenomenal, because most all those people probably would have died or been significantly sicker. So
you have a noteworthy response that sticks out already for that?
Yeah. So we just did a media event yesterday on one where it was a mother, full-term pregnancy, and had an abruptial placenta and started massive bleeding. Her husband called 911. They at least a liter on the floor when our guys got there, and they were able to get the blood in her. And as soon as she went through the ER door, they C-sectioned her and got the baby out. And the surgeons that were there said that she lost over a third of her blood, and that both her and the baby would never have made it if they hadn't got the blood in the field. So,
wow, success all around, mom, mother, and child in that case.
Absolutely, and it was great because she got right up in front of the camera and just sold it and sold. Hey, go out and give blood, to be part of the program, help us out. And
that's it. You can't ask for that. The testimonials are proof of the pudding, right? Mm-hmm. That this program is working. And that's part of the kind of innovative mindset that you've brought to the department and that you have, and obviously the reasons for the award. But with that, though, I know there's things that you still want. What's next for your department? Well,
actually, you mentioned our PPE.
Yeah, certainly.
So when you talk about culture, this is a culture change as well. And it's a lot of departments, when I mention this to them, they're just going like, how did you get there? So if you're a Colorado Springs firefighter, you don't own your own gear, right? You don't have your own gear. We grew up where, it was like the guy who had the dirtiest gear, woo, they're the coolest, right?
Yeah.
And the dirtiest, nastiest gear, right? Well, that was doing us no favors relative to cancer. So now what happens is you don't have your own gear. You have your name tag that goes on the back, and you keep your helmet. But otherwise, after a fire, we bag all that up before they leave the scene. It gets bagged up and it's sent to our station that manages our PPE. Our crews go to that station, and when they arrive, their whole set of new gear is laying there, clean gear, and they just pick it up and they go back and shower and do all that kind of stuff. But they don't have their own gear. It gets constantly cleaned. And so that was a big culture change, right? And now I think if we didn't do that, they'd be going like, hey, what's up with that? Why don't you, don't you care about us? And because it's come part of our culture, and it's a really healthy, positive change in our culture.
So they have one set in their locker, but if they're on a fire and they need to get that washed, they just go to the main.
It's not even their locker. Yeah, they have. Well, they have the one that they wear. Yeah.
But then if that gets dirty, that just goes in the wash, and then there's another set. Hey, Zam 44, whatever. Here it is. Here's a jacket for you. Here's an extra bunker set, and then that becomes what I use until I got to wash that. Correct.
Right.
And then obviously helmet stays the same, boots stay the same. Yeah. And then is that Velcroed on the back? How do you?
Yeah, just the name tag is just Velcroed on the back. It just rides on there. So they just peel that off and it goes on the next one. And same thing with the hoods and the gloves. They just get a whole new set. And so by the time when they peel it off and they put it in the bags, then they don't have to touch any of the nasty stuff again, and it doesn't, contaminate them. So.
How did that come about, and then how did you make that actionable to actually get it to that point? What were the kind of the steps there?
I would say it was first talking about it and then implementing it, and obviously there's a cash outlay to getting enough equipment to cover everybody. And there are times where we have multiple fires to where we're going like, oh, we're getting on the border here, because we do send it out to wash it. We don't wash it internally. We put it in barrels and it gets shipped off, and they wash it and then comes back. And so we've had a couple of places where we're like really riding the line close, but again, it was just talking through it and being transparent about the reasons we're doing it. And, obviously there's lots of data out there now about the impacts of the things that we're experiencing and that we were breathing and putting on our bodies and not cleaning and doing all that kind of stuff that are leading to really bad, weird cancers. Right.
Yeah.
And so from the minute you walk in our door in the training academy, we're talking about those potentials and how we want to do everything in our power to make you have a good, long 25, 30-year career, and then enjoy another 25, 30 years afterwards of retirement with your family. Right.
Right.
And so it took time. The biggest thing was going, it's not your gear anymore. That's where people are like, but yeah, over time they got it, and now everybody's on board. So
yeah, well, it makes sense from it's like NFL uniforms, right? It's like right. It's their number, but they're not they're not wearing their jerseys home and washing them. Right. They have another set of pants there when they get that dirty, and the other ones go into for repair. And so when you step back and think big picture, I mean that does make sense. Do you is one of the goals then to bring like that out to the actual fire ground so people don't have to come back?
Yeah. So we have done that where we can either bring it to their station or to the fire ground. We're working on that, expanding how we do that, because we're a big enough city that it does take time to do that. And we're also, everybody goes and showers after the fire too.
Yep.
And so
before you clean your gear, right? Shower before you clean your gear. Good.
And but we are having discussions. We need to expand where they can do it at, because it's for some units it's a drive to get to the place where we do it now. They just stay out of service,
Yeah. Logistics is always an issue, but I mean, right. As long as you're trying to transparently think about that and talk about it, people come up with solutions, right? And on this award, I know you've done great talking about your accomplishments, because I think you like to focus on the team and how many people have helped you get here. Do you find that do you have any extra pressure now that you've been named and now your mayor kind of throws it out all the time? Do you feel any extra pressure about this now?
I don't. It's not really extra pressure. It's just that people are saying it to me all the time, which I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So, it's I just try to keep it in perspective. But no, I love my job. I tell people I have different types of fires I have to put out. Right. It's not the fires that I love to fight, but there's this opportunity. And I think we're continuing to try to look at what our best practice is. And we're working on one of the things that didn't go the way we wanted on a June 11th vote, was taking over our transport here in our community. And it's something that actually we've been working on for about 20 years. I believe it's going to happen. It's the right thing. Politically, there's a couple of opposers that
need some education.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were educating the heck. There's just some other influences, but we believe we can get her done. And it may not happen with me. It may be my successors after me that get it done, but it'll make the biggest change in our system here, positive change that I've seen in my 45 years. So there's always good new stuff to be doing, and new technology that's coming in, and new tactics and those type of things. And that's what's fun for me, is because we have a lot of energy at all levels of folks that are looking at those type of things and bringing us ideas and doing the research and getting the data. And then it's up to us, myself and then my direct reports, to see if we can go out and get the money and fund it, or, increase whatever we need to get it done. So,
yeah. Well, it's a great attitude you have, Chief, and I appreciate you being candid. So thanks for bearing through. But the pressure of talking about yourself is nothing compared to our hot seat questions, which we still have a couple more for you.
All right,
but we're actually going to put you on the hot seat to start. Now these are mainly about you. So
okay.
Take a deep breath. You'll be able to get through them. Janelle always likes to lead off with them. So far you've done great, though. Really.
All right. Thanks.
All right, Chief. What do you personally see as the biggest challenge facing the fire service today?
I think the biggest one that I don't think enough people are thinking about is what we're going to do when we have the massive either cyber attack or solar storm. So both of those, I think, are in our future. And being that we are so, and it's not just us as a fire service, but across the nation, even our communities are so computer-based and wired in that we have to be thinking about how are we going to respond when we're not going to have, I say we're not going to have phones. One of the things we're doing right now is actually putting hard lines back into our fire stations that don't have them, because all of our phones are computer-based. Making sure that our map books are on our rigs, because we had to push to take all of our map books off. We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Because cyber is a big issue. And I don't know if you guys were impacted by the CrowdStrike deal that happened, but it took out basically our CAD and our some of our dispatch system, and we had to do everything on paper and just manually opening speakers and those type of things. That was a small taste of a really big, broader deal that I think we as the fire service need to be looking at and how we're going to respond. Our battalion chiefs have been working on it in our community, and it's going to be looking like waiting for people to run to our door and knock on the door, and then getting the information and leaving one person behind on the crew while 3 go out to take care of the emergency so that we have somebody for the next one. It's that simplistic, but if we're not prepared, nothing's going to happen. So, yeah,
it's a great point. I had a question to one of our chiefs. I said, Chief, we get into the stations dialing in a code and a remote. So what happens when the power's out and the codes go down? Do we have a key planted underneath a rock or something we can get into the firehouses?
Right.
And there was just blank stare that said, "Well, yeah, I think so." I'm like,
yeah.
Do we know? I mean, it's just a simple question, right? Right. And I think that's what you're saying is don't get rid of those map books yet. Yeah. There still could be a use for them. Like you said, if the whole system breaks down, and I think it's something that people should be aware of. So I kind of second that challenge that you have brought forth. So very good insight. Speaking of challenges, how about you personally, Chief? I mean, you've done a lot of great things for the department, and obviously you got this great award, and family you had mentioned early on is important, and spending time with them. For you, what's been one of the biggest challenges you've overcome?
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know that I've overcome it yet because it's the transport thing for me. So June 11th, we needed 5 votes out of 9, right? 5 to vote that in. We had 5 the Saturday before the council meeting. The one council person was speaking and 100% supportive, had been 100% supportive. And our opponents got to her in the next 24 to 48 hours, and she flipped on the day that the vote was supposed to go. And, that's like, and that one decision is for us is going to leave about, because we're going to have to extend with the private provider for a year, is going to leave about $10 to $12 million on the table of money that we could have used to better our system, because we do have to extend for a year. But so that's hard. That's a big challenge. It's not over yet. We're still working on it. I hope to see it through. And then I would say the biggest thing is trying to keep our people safe. Right. Yeah. We have a long history of as far as being a big metro department, we haven't lost anybody traumatically for 100 years. Now we have recently lost a couple to cancers, right? And that's part of our focus now. But I want to maintain the fact that we haven't lost somebody on the fire ground or in a vehicle accident or, some other untoward event, and keep that safety up. Again, going back to, valuing our people and making sure that they're taken care of.
Yeah. How about you personally, like in personal life and managing all these things? What's your biggest challenge?
The kitchen remodel that's going on at my house right now. we have no kitchen or no living room.
Half the audience just went, "Oh, I can relate to this."
Yeah,
I like this, Chief, right now.
Yeah. So began
right?
in July, and we've been living out of a microwave, and we just got the news that our cabinet installers did things wrong, so we have to reorder some of the cabinets, so that puts it off another month. So living out of a microwave and having no sink for months is no fun, but I will survive.
Yep, you will overcome this. I love it.
I have a good wife that supports me in this job, and I wasn't going to take the fire chief's job, just so you know. I would have been retired a year and a half ago at the end of my drop for my retirement. Mm-hmm. And when the opening came, there was people that spoke into my life that were around me and really encouraged me to do it. And I thought about it and I prayed about it and thought, well, I'll give it a shot. And if they don't pick me, then there's the answer, right? Well, they picked me. And so 3.5 years later, I'm still sitting here, but I'm not regretting it. I mean, the opportunities I've had and the challenges that I've had and been able to take on have been fun for the most part, and it's been good to see the department move in a great direction. So
yeah, well, you're pretty good at it, and you mentioned people encouraged you. I think Janelle's got a question that might piggyback that.
Well, Chief, who's the biggest positive influence in your life? Maybe not your contractor, but somebody with the fire service.
Yeah. Well, that's my son, by the way.
Well, he's getting you back from for 2007 and all the freezing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He does that on the side. So, well, the biggest I have. I'm a man of faith, and it's my Lord. I try to reflect how Jesus lived and the example he set in treating people and sacrifice, and that's where it comes from for me. So
yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah. And then physically, probably my dad, So he was a World War II fighter pilot, and he did a lot of sacrificing and service and definitely instilled that in my family. So.
And we'll include the link to the article in which you talk about your dad and his service. So we'll include that in the show notes.
Oh, great. Yeah, that'd be great.
Chief, so many different nuggets that you gave us. You had mentioned early on that you were kind of a misfit, like we like to call them, where you're always trying to improve your craft. But, the ultimate kind of ideas and ideals that we have with this program, I know you have instilled them in all those around you. But for you personally, it comes down to, what are you doing right now to get better?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tell you what, I'm listening. I think that's the key thing. I've been blessed through the last few years to make lots of connections with people in our industry across the nation and get to bounce things off of them and get to say I may not be the smartest person in the room, but I know a lot of smart people, and if I can tap into them and build off of the lessons they've learned from anything from how they're doing work or how they're running a department or how they're treating people, then I try to grab that. And I think that's, and going back to what you're all about, I think the key for us in the organization is from day one, when the person comes through our door, is instill in them a desire to keep on learning throughout their whole career. Right. And I tell people I've been in this with Springs Fire for 37 years, but I'm still learning and, things better about how we can do things better in our job and this and that. And we got to be open to that, because the minute we shut that down, we're going to start going downhill.
Yeah. It transfers to so many aspects of life, not only just, professionally, but I think personally, we had mentioned all the mental health issues that we're facing, the physical issues that we face, and that mindset that you've instilled, I think, in those around you is the same thing we're trying to encapsulate here with the podcast. So thank you so much for confirming that. And I'm going to claim you part of the Misfit Nation. So I
appreciate that.
Yeah. Congratulations on your award. Well deserved.
I do appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And I'm honored and humbled by it. So.
Well, it's humbled so much that we got you to blush a little bit. So for our listeners, if you're just listening to this, you should go to our YouTube page, the Better Every Shift YouTube page, where you can actually watch Chief blush a little bit. But you also can see the passion in his eyes when he talks about his department and his love for his community. You can do that also on the Better Every Shift banner or through Fire Rescue One. If you go to firerescue1.com, click on the Better Every Shift banner. You can email the program, bettereveryshift@firerescue1.com. Wherever you listen, watch, please rate, review the show. Tell us we're either on to something or on something. Share it with some others to, again, grow the Misfit Nation. I want to summarize some of the things that we talked about here today with the IFC Chief of the Year. But I think I can summarize it in a quick statement about mission first, people always. And it's about learning something, doing something, and sharing something to make you and those around you better every shift. Thanks for listening, everybody.